ON1 Photo RAW 2026 has been released and there are some new features. Today we're going to go over them so you're familiar with where they are. This is going to be extremely helpful for long-term users of ON1 Photo RAW, and if you're brand new to ON1 Photo RAW, it's good to know where some of these new features are located. Now, if you are interested in picking up ON1 Photo RAW, consider using the coupon code FREEWILL10. That'll be valid until October 31st, 2025. It'll save you some money when you purchase. I do make a small commission whenever you use that coupon code, but it's at no extra cost to you, and it's a win-win. Now, let's jump into ON1 Photo RAW and take a look at some of the new features. Here we are inside of Photo RAW 2026. We're going to take a look at the new masking tools inside of ON1. Now, this isn't going to be a deep dive. I have created a video that will get you familiar with using the masking tools inside of ON1, but what I want to do is kind of just give you the overview of what's possible with the new masking tools. So here is an image. If I hold down the backslash key, you can see this is the original that came in to ON1 Photo RAW. And then after editing using some masks, I was able to create this. Now, those are all represented here using the new local adjustments. You'll notice that local adjustments, it actually looks a little different than what it did before. We no longer have that blue icon to add an adjustment. Instead, we have to now add in the mask. So when we select a mask, I'll just hit the plus icon and then we'll come down to gradient. I can click on add. Again, I created a video that showcases how the new masking tools work, so that way you can get familiar. This is more of an overview video, so I'm not going deep into how this works. With the exception of, I want to showcase that when I apply a local adjustment, in the past, we used to get a -1 exposure on our adjustment. Notice now I get a neutral working space when I apply an adjustment. This is a huge improvement. It's going to save time. I'm enjoying this personally, and I think you will as well. I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to take a look at the possibilities of using the new masking tools. The first one is going to be very straightforward. I'm going to click on this sunrise option because I added in that sunrise. If I turn it off, you can see the sky wasn't actually yellow or warm like that. If I turn it back on, you can see I was able to add this as a creative effect. Well, let's take a look at the mask. I'm going to click on the mask icon here. So that way, when I click on mask layers, I actually get the layers that are created that are making up this mask. So if I press the letter O, you can see I essentially just have a radial filter over the horizon and it's fading off into the sky. But if I turn off the top filter here, which is the gradient, if I turn that off, you can see it goes up much higher. And the way that I've actually made that not go up so high is by using a blend mode, or a mode, I should say, of intersect. Again, very, very powerful masking tools that we now have available to us in order to select just the areas of the image that we want so we can apply our adjustments to it seamlessly. So that's one of the masking options here. Now, mind you, I did combine multiple masks to make up this overall selection. The first one was a sky mask. So if I turn all of those off, or the top two off, the first one's a sky mask. The second one was a gradient, just to pull down from the top there so that way it fades evenly. And then I wanted more control over how the sunrise effect that I was applying was going to fade into the image. And that's where I applied another gradient mask, but this one is a radial gradient. Another new feature inside of ON1 Photo RAW is the ability to customize where your properties for masking as well as your layers live in the workspace. So what you can do is, if I don't want the masking to be nested on the right side of my workspace, I can come up to Window, and then I can hover over Properties. Again, Properties is going to be your masking properties. I can hover over over Properties, and I have the option to either nest to the right, which is where it's at currently. You can tell because I have this blue check mark, or I can nest it to the left by clicking on it. Now it's going to disappear from this right column, because it's no longer there. I just nested it in the left column. The problem is I don't see it over here on the left side. The reason is because I have the left column pane hidden right now. If you come all the way down to the bottom left corner of ON1, there's going to be a little icon that is going to allow you to show or hide the left pane. If I click that, you'll notice that I get a left pane over here, and look at that. My masking properties are now visible to me, and they work just like they normally would. Then, if I don't want them nested over here, because maybe I want to keep this left pane closed, well, I can come up to Window, come over to Properties, and this has been behavior that was available to us in previous versions of ON1, but I like to cover this especially for the new users. Is I can come over to Properties, and you'll notice that I have Nest Left with a check mark. You'll want to find the one that has the check mark, either Nest Right or Nest Left. And then you'll click the one that has the check mark, and essentially you're removing that check mark. And so now I've told ON1, I actually want my window or my properties window to be floating. I don't want it locked in to either of these panes on the left or the right. So if I want full capability to, get a full screen here, then I can do that with having this floating window. And then when I don't want to see it or want to use it, I can just hit the X, it goes away. Now, it's not gone forever. We can bring it back by clicking on any of our mask thumbnails, like so. And now I have my masking pane or my masking properties available to me again. Now for me, I personally enjoy having my mask properties nested on the right side. So I'm going to click Window, come over to Properties, and Nest Right. So now those are locked in on the right side. I can minimize that by clicking on the word masking, and that goes back into itself, giving me more real estate on the right side here. And you could do the same thing with the layers panel. Now, I do want to make it very clear. There are some nuances when it comes to ON1 for the new users, as well as some returning users or long-term users of ON1. Layers, the layers property panel here, this is how you stack multiple images into ON1. So I could duplicate this image by clicking the duplicate button here. And that's going to give me 2 copies of the exact same image with all of the exact same edits that I've had applied on the previous copy. The other way that you can add images, I'm not going to do it for this video, but you can hit the add layer or the plus icon, and then you can navigate on your hard drive and go find another image, and you can stack that on top of here. That would be some of the basic compositing capabilities. That's what this layer pane is designed and dedicated for. All right. The reason I point this out, I'm just going to delete this layer. The reason I point this out is that when you click on masking, you'll notice that you now have something called mask layers. This is only internal to the adjustment that you are trying to mask into your image. So if you click on the mask thumbnail here, I now get all of my mask layers, and this is how I build up that selection. Again, this is something that is important to understand, but I wanted to showcase this because that will change your workflow, and the word layers, it can be a stumbling block for some people. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Hopefully that was helpful. Another new feature that's been added into ON1 Photo RAW 2026 is something known as effects starting points. So if I click on the effects tab here, you'll notice I have this oval to the left of add filter. This is what's known as the effects starting point selection box. You can click this drop down and you can choose from some of the presets that ON1 has available, which here are the ON1 recommended starting points. So if I click that, you'll see that I just get a bunch of filters that ON1 thinks is commonly used for the users of the software. And then I can go down here, and maybe you're switching from Lightroom or Capture One. What ON1 is going to do is allow you to select the workflow that you may be the most familiar with, and it's going to take the filters that are the most similar to what's in Lightroom or Capture One that are also available inside of ON1 and provide them to you. So you can add those in right here pretty easily. But where the true power comes in with effects starting points is creating your own. Now, I do have a dedicated video showing the effect starting point, so I'm not going to go over creating one here. What I will do is come down to other, and you'll notice that these are all my presets, and then I have FWP workspaces, and if I come over here to the left, I can choose a workspace that I've created. Now, I've been creating a few of these. The one that I'm using most recently, or most like right now, is the light and color starting. And this is just for my personal workflow. I've made this to fit my needs, and that's the power of having these effect starting points. You can create one that fits your needs and then develop your images however you find to be the most accessible or efficient. Now, something that you should be aware of, and I hope ON1 fixes this, inside of the effects tab, you'll notice we no longer have the preset save icon. The only way that I've found as of right now in the release version of ON1 Photo RAW 2026 to save a preset, you need to come over to develop, and then you'll get the icon in order to save your preset. Now, since we're on the develop tab, let's go ahead and take a look at what happened to tone and color. So for those of you who are familiar with scanning film, well, ON1 gave some capability in order for you to develop your film. The idea of the develop module has really increased with this opportunity. So if I click on tone and color, we'll click there. You'll notice that right underneath the exposure section, we now have a new option to select a mode. Now, 9 times out of 10, if you're not scanning film, you're going to leave this on positive because all of our images are already exposed or created in the digital space, so you're good to go. However, if you happen to be scanning color negatives, well, you can click and select this and you'll get a much different preview, I imagine. I don't have any scanned film to actually showcase, but you can get a color negative render here. And then if you are working with black and white, well, you can also do a monochrome negative exposure as well. So this is just really helpful for people who are scanning film and want to use ON1 to develop that scanned film. I'm going to come back to positive. And the reason I show this is because if for whatever reason, maybe you accidentally click one of these and you save it into a preset and you're like, why do all of my images look like this? They should not look like this. Well, it's probably because you selected the wrong mode. You want to just come back to develop and then click on the mode option and select positive. And then that brings you back to what you would probably expect to see. Know that it's here. Be careful with it if it's not something that you intend to use. All right, so jumping back over to the effects tab, we now have some new changes to the filter dialog box. Again, I created a video specifically for this, so you can check that out in the description box below. So I'm just going to go over this really briefly. If I click on add filter, you'll notice I can now select a little heart next to filters that I want to use. But more importantly, you'll notice that there are categories of filters now. So instead of the entire list being alphabetical, we now have categories based off of what ON1 decided to name them. That is not something I'll get into in this video. Just note that your filters may not be where you expect them to be if you're a long-term user. And if you're new, hopefully this is helpful for identifying which filters you want to use. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. The other thing that is unique about this, and this is really helpful for people using smaller computer screens or people who don't really want to see all of the filters. Notice that I have all of these filters with hearts. If I click that, well, now I can truncate the list and only see the filters that I care to use on a regular basis. Lots of customization capability. The last customization when it comes to the add new filters dialog box is if I hit the 3-line menu, I can show legacy filters or hide them. I like to show them because I actually have a legacy filter that I want to use. And note that I do have a legacy filter with a heart on it. If I hide the legacy filters and then I click the heart, well, I don't get to see the one that I even have hearted, which I would love for ON1 to correct that behavior, but as of right now, that's not the way it works. So I'm just going to leave all of my filters showing, and I don't mind having the description there. So for me, this works out just fine. And then again, I'll just uncheck the heart. But since we have the filter dialog box open, let's talk about some of the new filters that are available to us here inside of ON1 Photo RAW. The first new filter that we're going to cover is over here in the Essentials section, and it's called Depth Lighting. I did a video showing how the depth lighting tool works. So again, just like I've been saying in this entire video, check the description box below. You'll get a lot of good information from that video. It's the only real change over here in the Essentials. You would think color grading and color mixer are new, but they're actually not new tools. Color Mixer is just a renamed version of the color adjustment tool that we've had in ON1 for many, many years. So I'm not going to talk about that because that's all it is. It's just the color adjustment tool. But my favorite is still the color enhancer. And for some reason, it doesn't have a heart. So let's just give that a heart. All right. The next section is creative, and this is where ON1 2026 has actually seen some improvements or new filters. All right. The first one is going to be this double exposure filter. Now, I haven't had a chance to play with this and figure out how to use it, but it is available. And if you have figured out how to use it, please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you're doing with it. But nonetheless, it is available to us right here inside of the creative section. The next thing down is going to be the motion. Now, this is a new filter that is dedicated to applying a motion blur to your image. It does work different than the motion drop down that's found inside of the blur tool or blur filter. And I will make a dedicated video talking about this. I just kind of want to tell you that these things are new, and so you know where to find them. The next filter that's new is the split filled filter. Now, this isn't a tool that I think I'll be using too often. However, it is a tool that I think is useful, especially for landscape photographers who want to make things prospectively look different. Either make things larger or maybe make it appear that it's closer in frame. This tool could definitely be helpful. But again, I guess I defer to all of my landscape photographers. Is this a tool that you find helpful or useful? Let me know in the comment section below. One of the new features in 2026 that may have slipped under the radar is the ability to transform the perspective of your image without getting black corners or anything weird like that. So I'm going to come over to Develop, click on Transform, and watch how I pull the vertical and it just starts to straighten up that horizon. This is an extreme, I guess, example, but notice I didn't get any black corners at the top or at the bottom, which the behavior previously did that. Same thing happens with horizontal rotations here. If I pull that left or right, the same thing happens. And then, of course, rotating the image, it keeps it within the frame of the image. This is really helpful, I think, for architectural photographers, and even maybe for landscape photographers that want to correct some perspective if you have trees that are skewing left or right, whatever it may be. So hopefully this is a tool that's helpful, and if it is, then great, and if not, you can always just turn off the transform and never touch it, but it is available to you in the 2026 version of ON1 Photo RAW. Now, the final thing I'm not actually going to demonstrate in this video, it's the Resize AI 2026. It has been integrated with ON1 Photo RAW. So I will make a dedicated video for that particular tool because that's a whole different thing. That's its own standalone tool, and it's also now integrated with the 2026 version of ON1. So when I get that up, then if that's something you're interested in, check it out. Those are the new features inside of ON1 Photo RAW 2026. Again, if you'd like to pick up Photo RAW 2026, consider using the coupon code FREEWILL10. That's valid until October 31st, 2025. Let me know your thoughts of this new software in the comment section below. And of course, check the description box if you want to watch some of the other videos that I've made showcasing some of the more prominent features of ON1 Photo RAW 2026. Until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.